Welcome to another episode of the Doug and Mike Show. I am Mike.
And I'm Doug, and we have real conversations with real people. Mike, tell them who our guest is today.
Thanks, Doug. We got a great episode planned for you today. We are unpacking some more great content with Nikki Fried. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on today, guys.
Nikki, you are questioning your sanity for running for political office, by the way.
So do my parents.
Yeah. You notice we're not doing that. We're on the other side. So we are having you on here today to talk about who you are. Just talk about your background. I think it's not often enough that we get to really meet and get to know who our candidates are that run for office. And I think the more informed we are and the voters are, I think that helps us, sort of let this democratic process be all that it is meant to be. So you are running for Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services. I got my tongue tied there.
It's a tongue twister.
Tell us, it's a tongue twister. I was impressed watching your videos about you talking about it, how you were able to pull it off every time.
Not every time. You should see the bloopers of some of my my footage from tape recordings. It's quite funny, actually.
Well, who is Nikki Fried? How did you get to this place you're at right now?
Yeah, so I grew up in Miami. I was born and raised there. I've got a younger sister who now has 2 beautiful kids and live in Wellington, Florida. And I've just been somebody who's always been involved in some kind of capacity. In middle school, I was vice president of my middle school. In high school, I was always involved in my youth group and was president of South Florida, ran for international president. Always involved in some type of community service like homeless shelters and food kitchens on the weekends to Habitat for Humanity. And then I got to University of Florida where I have my undergrad, master's in law degree. And
Go Gators.
Go Gators, absolutely. I bleed.
Wait a minute, guys. Wait a minute. Easy.
Yeah, well, and so I have, I always say this. My dad actually is a huge, huge Seminole. So growing up in Miami, I grew up as a Seminole in hurricane territory. So I went to kind of what I thought was neutral territory and going into University of Florida. But basically, it was 8 years of my dad not wanting to participate in any University of Florida activities. But I was student body president my last year at EF.
That's funny.
And not until I became president did my dad actually buy a Gator Dad bumper sticker, but refused to put it on his actual car, only put it in his office. So it wasn't like he was going to have anybody else see it but himself. And then I've been practicing law.
I like this guy already.
Wow.
Right? I will pass on the kind words. And so then the last 15 years, I've been practicing law throughout the state of Florida. Some up in Jacksonville. I was a public defender in Alachua County and took on the big banks down here in South Florida during the foreclosure crisis. And then really for the last 7 years, I've been doing government consulting and representing Broward School Board, so fighting for our education dollars, fighting for foster care children, and fighting for medical marijuana, because I really have seen firsthand how beneficial it is to our citizens and to patients across the country. And I really kind of said, I've been somebody who's, I love public policy. I love being involved. I love making a difference. And been so frustrated year in and year out of things that are happening in Tallahassee. And just saw kind of this was an opportune time to, finally put myself out there and stop, yelling at the TV screen, stop reading all the Facebook posts and put my name on a ballot and, put myself out there to the citizens of Florida and say, all right, if you're looking for something different, looking for, someone who is going to be a fighter, here I am.
Yes. Yeah, I got to meet Nikki in Tallahassee, and it's so funny because we have so many mutual friends, but we never had a chance to meet. It was through Broward days that she was a co-chairperson of that we finally got together. But I wanted to ask you, what impact do you feel that being the Commissioner of Agriculture would you be bringing?
It's kind of, it's disheartening that, as I've gone through the entire state, and this position is a cabinet member. It's one of our constitutional officers in the state. And 95% plus of our Floridians have no idea that this is an elected position. And even if they know it's an elected position, they think it's just only agriculture. And while agriculture is obviously extremely important to our state as the number 2 economic driver in our entire state, it's so much bigger than that. It's all of our environmental policies, our water policies, our energy policies, all of our consumer services, our concealed weapons permitting is all housed in the department. And so I come there saying, look, it's time for, the rest of the state to start, opening up and seeing all the great things that could come when somebody starts putting the right policies forward. Making sure that our environment's finally coming first, making sure that the consumers, we're the number 1, fraud in the entire country here in the state of Florida. And having the right consumer protections in place and making sure that the taxpayers have somebody in Tallahassee to fight for them, it's what I bring to the table. We've seen, the last year, what happens when our environmental policies and our water policies aren't working. We see green algae, coming out of Lake Okeechobee. We see red tides over on the west part of our state. We're sitting and talking about, deep well injections to deal with the water supply source problem. And, that's not working. That's not answers. And, I come here saying, I'm determined to find solutions to these problems and kind of take politics out of the equation. I'm somebody who, as talking back about my dad, my dad's a diehard Republican. My mom is a diehard Democrat. And I, sitting at dinner room tables, talking about politics and policy, I was always taught to listen to both sides of the aisle and try to bring people together for the right policy.
That's smart.
Nikki, I always like to do like a little tune up on civics because let's face it, most of our listeners probably had to get the Cliff's Notes versions to how to pass a bill, right?
What was that? What was that Looney Tunes thing about? How it's
so good. I love that. It was so good. The little bit. I mean, we all need that. We need to freshen that up and do like a new version of that, don't we?
Right. Absolutely.
But explain to us a little bit about the interaction between the cabinet members and how this position fits in there.
Yeah, so sure, absolutely. And it's funny that you say Civics 101. My niece just turned 9, and last year I was asked to come to her class and teach Politics 101. And so I got to do the civics lessons basically to her 3rd grade class. And I said, okay, now here's the real test. Am I smarter than a 3rd grader? And they had me stumped on some of their questions for sure. But so this is, how our government works. We have the 2 branches. We have the legislature, we have the House, and we have the Senate. And then you have the 4 cabinet positions. You have the governor, you have our attorney general, you have our chief financial officer, and your ag commissioner. And all 4 of us have an equal vote in the cabinet. So we are the ones who make any of the land swap deals. We are the ones who are on the clemency board, our pension plans. We make a decision on who is the insurance regulator, the Office of Financial Regulations. And so basically we come together in cabinet meetings to, make awards and nominations and come up with basically policies for the entire state. And so we each have our own independent, roles that we have inside of our own departments. And then we operate as independent movers when it comes to votes on the cabinet. The governor has his responsibilities and all the different agencies that fall underneath him. Our attorney general is the attorney for the state of Florida. So if anybody needs to be sued on behalf of the state or defended on behalf of the state, that's where our attorney general is. Our CFO is our money person, and the Commissioner of Agriculture deals with all the big responsibilities that I had earlier stated. Somebody's asking on a campaign trail, how did the ag commissioner get to be such a big responsibility? And it kind of seems like anything that they didn't know where to put it, they put it underneath this one position. So, I say I'm blessed to be running for such a large position because it really impacts people's lives every single day, whether it's the food that they eat, the water that they're drinking, interactions with the gas station pumps, telemarketers. I mean, basically, it has such a broad reach that I really have an ability to make an impact in people's lives every day.
And for our group, you're in charge of the forestry firefighters.
Absolutely.
So that's near and dear to us.
Yeah, and and that's it falls underneath there, and I know we're putting firefighters' lives at stake every single day, and we're not paying them enough. We spend all this money and time training, and we can't retain because it's the quality of life is just not there, and we need to do a better job, really increasing their funds and making sure that we respect exactly what they're doing.
So why should
The last time we talked to some of
Sure.
let me sneak one in here real quick, Doug. The last time we talked to some of the forestry guys, they can't even get off food stamps.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
It's
embarrassing. I mean, that's embarrassing.
No, I mean, and these guys are
And
putting literally their lives at risk and protecting our land. With I say every single day on the campaign, our environment is our future. It is our entire economic sources is our environment, whether it's our land, our water, or the air that we breathe. And if we are not doing all that we can to conserve and protect it, we're not going to have an economy and a state to go to in years to come.
So you have no prior legislative official experience, correct?
Correct.
So to the average listener and voter out there, it's like, talk about, why they should pick you versus someone that's already been involved in the legislature and kind of understands where the, as they like to say, where the bathrooms are.
Well, I do know where the bathrooms are. Like I said, I've been in Tallahassee for the last 7 years. I have helped pass some pretty landmark legislation in Tallahassee, including getting a right to counsel for our children in the foster care system who have special needs, and then getting them $4.5 million. So I have gone through the legislative process. I understand it. I probably, as an attorney, probably know the moving parts of legislation and policy better than anybody in Tallahassee. And I come with a new perspective. And just because I don't come from the legislature, I think that's actually a positive thing, which means that I have a new opportunity to dig into the weeds and to make changes and really see things from a different perspective. And a lot of times when people get to Tallahassee, they get, especially when some of our young House members first get there, they're novices and naive to how the world works. And so they're voting on very important policies that have drastic impacts on our state and really don't understand what they're voting on. So somebody like me who's had leadership positions my entire life, I've been a trailblazer my entire life, somebody who's worked across the aisles, know how to get things done. I come there with, hey, things aren't working. Status quo and people that have been in office for 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, just tells me that they're part of the problem. Our state's not going in the right direction. We have, significant and serious problems in our state. We see that every day in the news. And we need people with a new perspective and a fresh start to things. And, somebody who's been there 8 years and passing policy that's not been the right for the state, why should we give them another opportunity to have another 4 years of messing up our policies?
Thank you.
What is it's like do you find yourself, because you talk about how, and I think it is, I would definitely agree with you in terms of the looking at the outsider insider approach. Okay, this person's been in Tallahassee, as far as they've been elected in Tallahassee, do they know it better? Are they more suited than somebody who maybe has not been elected in Tallahassee? Now, I agree with you. I think that there are many people that work around politics that understand how the sausage is made, as much, if not more so, than the folks that are electeds up there. So I would definitely side with you on that. I think that, you definitely have a diverse background here and a lot of experience in governance. And, but part two to that is, do you ever, because Doug and I work in politics too, and it's like, do you ever get turned off? Do you ever get frustrated by politics? And if you do, what are those things? Oh my God,
that's why I'm running. I mean, that's exactly why I'm running. I see it, like I said, that the three main things that I've been working on for the last 5, 6, 7 years is, public education. And so every single year I see our education budget being cut. We had a 47-cent increase here in Broward County for our public education. if we're not educating our kids and having a higher graduation rate, we're not creating a workforce. Corporations and companies aren't going to come move here to the state of Florida if we don't have an education system. And so that has been so frustrating time in and time out. Like I said, I've been working on the expansion of medical marijuana and seeing that this is a constitutional amendment now in our state, and seeing how Tallahassee has just completely messed up the implementation. So yeah, I get very frustrated seeing at the last minute. I always tell people, don't ever come up to Tallahassee last 2 weeks of session. You will be disgusted by bills that have gone through, that have been vetted in the committee process, hit the House or the Senate floor, and all of a sudden all these amendments start flying. They're combining bills. They bounce back and forth between the chambers, and the chambers are negotiating what their priority bills are. And really, that's not the way public policy is supposed to be made. So I am frustrated every single year. I mean, this past year I was working on a bill trying to give victims of sex trafficking a right to a civil action against not necessarily the perpetrators, but those who have turned a blind eye to a situation. And at the last minute, it was killed by big corporations. And I was like, what are we doing here? We're trying to protect the victims here and giving them a voice. So I again, so I get frustrated every single session. And that really is what got me to run this year, because I can't keep getting frustrated. I got to get up there and actually make a difference.
I was in some of the committee meetings where the victims testified, and it was just broke your heart, with the trafficking and all those stories, and and it just showed that the machine is real, that if they want to kill something, they kill it. In fact, that even happened with our cancer legislation. Yep.
Absolutely. So, people talk about, well, maybe it's a good thing when bills don't pass. Sometimes, but it's just really sad, to watch things that are coming out of Tallahassee and knowing that it's not always the right policies. It's all about politics, not about people.
What are some common ground issues that you think you can work with Republicans on?
I think there is going to be some good common ground issues. I think that finally everybody's waking up to know that our water problem, it's real. Climate is changing. Sea level is rising. These are not, these are not things that are made up and in our heads. And so I think that there will be an opportunity for, both sides of the aisle. I mean, look, we all drink water. I don't care if you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, you're an independent, you want clean water. I mean, that's a human issue, not a partisan issue. And so I think that on some of those issues, we really can kind of dig through the weeds and get the right public policy. But it's going to take time. It's going to take individuals willing to sit on the opposite sides of the table and put all their differences behind them and say, let's do the right thing here.
Nikki, do you have any family members that serve in public safety? Just curious if you got anybody out there.
Well, my mother was a school teacher.
That counts. That counts.
Yeah.
Taught 2-year-olds.
That's hazard pay.
Yeah, so she taught 2- and 3-year-olds for 20 years.
Bless
exactly. Her. So I definitely admire all that she did, for the future of art and whatnot. And then I was a public defender for 3.5 years. So, so I know what it's like to be a government employee. I have a cousin in the state legislature. He's out in the Palm Beach County area. So it's just always been part of, my background. My, family served in the military. I have a lot of friends that are still in public service.
Give us a story from the campaign trail. I loved hearing the people you meet, the things you find out. I mean, what stands out? You got anything that really is remarkable?
I mean, every day. So I'm running for ag,
Right.
And so I get the question a lot. Is what is a South Florida girl doing running for agriculture, and can you clean up the blue-green algae in those fields? That's been definitely an interesting different aspect of it. But no, it was probably a couple weeks ago. I was in Orlando and I had a new staff member with me, and we were actually driving around in her boyfriend's pickup truck, just because it was just the easiest car that we were able to get that day. And I got a last minute call from a rancher in Osceola County and said, hey, can you come down here? There's a beginning of a conference. And there's a couple guys that really want to meet you. I was like, absolutely. So we drove down to Osceola County, and as we're getting into town, he's like, all right, we're going to be right by the fairgrounds underneath the big oak tree. I was like, all right. So we pull up to this area, and there are 6 or 7 pickup trucks literally circling around an oak tree. And everybody's with like their cowboy hats on, their belt buckles on, their cowboy boots. And here she and I get out of this pickup truck in our dress and heels. And we have a meeting underneath an oak tree by all the pickup trucks. And so I turned to my staffer and I said, welcome to Ag.
There you go. Yeah.
That's good.
This is your office, your new office. That's cool. That is neat.
Now, your background with medical cannabis, I mean, it's my understanding that does not fall under Commissioner of Agriculture, which I thought was a no-brainer.
Yep. Yeah. So currently, the way the department is set up is the Office of Medical Marijuana Use, which falls underneath the Department of Health under the Governor's administration. However, there are a couple of different aspects that does fall underneath the Department of Ag. One is our pesticides and our fertilizers of what we can be utilizing for growing. And then also the edible rules. Once there is edible rules that come out, so all the food and safety components will fall underneath the Department of Ag. And, as we continue talking about, expansion and, eventually legalization, which I think is inevitable in years to come, that will start falling underneath the Department of Ag because then it's just a crop. And the other thing that I talk about too a lot is basically the expansion of our industrial hemp program. And that is another opportunity for our local farmers to really get involved with another crop that they can grow, an alternative crop they can grow on their land, which could be used for styrofoam, for paper, for straws. It's better for the environment. And it really gives our, and then you can start doing it also for CBD sales as well. And I talked about having the program be part of Fresh from Florida, which will then create a nice opportunity for our local farmers to be able to participate in this and keep the revenue here in the state of Florida.
Nikki, what is and we're obviously going to get loose here a little bit and have a little fun too. We don't have to just talk politics. What's who inspires you? Like, who are those folks out there in the world that you've always looked up to, or that like give you some passion and drive?
I always talk about when I was younger, Golda Meir, which is kind of an outside the box what people would think that I would aspire to be, but she was the first and only female prime minister of the state of Israel. And to be head of a state which is very male dominated, religious in a lot of respects, saw her as a complete trailblazer and just amazing. And then, I have one of my biggest idols is my grandfather. He unfortunately passed away about 4 years ago from Alzheimer's. But he was one of the most amazing men that I have ever come across. He grew up with very little, would tell me all the stories of when he grew up in the Bronx and, having to, bring home the milk money for his family. And then he and my grandmother moved here to South Florida and just worked hard worker every single day of his life. And, and he gave my sister and I everything he had. Every time that we would see him, he would slip us $20 and knowing that was part of his retirement. He just was one of the most amazing men. He would just, every single time I saw him, slip me those $20 and pull me aside and just said, don't anybody tell you anything different because you are an amazing, special person and can do anything your heart desires.
That's left a big impact on you, it looks like. Yep. Yeah, that's neat. Very neat. Doug, what else do we got? But I don't want to keep you all day here, Nikki. I know you've got a busy regimen. You were telling us you've got some more travel in store even tonight and tomorrow.
I guess my question is and I know I'm going to drift here a little bit, but this whole paintbrush of socialism and stuff like that. How do you, are you getting painted with that or?
No, the reality is that, it's unfortunate that the political mudslinging started on day one. and everybody is painted in such a way. But, I have always been somebody that if anybody's ever known me, I'm socially liberal, and there's nothing about me that says otherwise. And I've always been more, what I say is economically responsible. And so I completely support and endorse my Democratic comrades that we're out there in the trenches. But I have not seen, no one's been slinging that in my direction. Also, I don't create economic policies. And so I think that's also why it hasn't trickled down to me.
Yeah, the labels are difficult to deal with. I think that's sort of at the crutch of what's wrong with our political system right now, is that you have to fit into these two boxes, and you're one or the other, and you can't have a conservative idea and belief and also hold a more liberal belief at the same time. That's unfortunate that's where we're at now.
Yeah, it is. And, and it's so sad because, when you have, a political environment like this, you got 22 million people here, in the state of Florida. And, except for the governor and really the senators races, you're not, there's only so much bandwidth and so much that people can absorb and get in front of them. And when you do very quickly, catchphrases or labeling of it, and unfortunately, not to use but it spreads like wildfire. And it's unfortunate that people are so quick to judge and so quick to believe what they're hearing on, the opposition of, on both sides. This is, I think it's wrong with politics on both sides of the aisle, that everybody throws all of these, things out there to see what sticks. And then when it sticks, they just keep going. And it really is such a disservice to our electorate that we're not giving them real information and telling them the truth about what's happening in politics. We throw things out there, which is not helping the conversation.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up. I want to ask you one fast, funny question. What's something that really annoys you but doesn't bother most people?
Something that really annoys me that won't bother most people. What probably most people don't. When I'm at the food store, and somebody's got their food cart in the middle of the aisle, and you can't get past them, and they're just sitting there with the food cart in the middle of the aisle, and they're looking at something on one side, and they're just sitting there and you can't pass them. Like, come on, there's two lanes here.
Oh, that's classic.
That's a South Florida thing, man. Tallahassee, listen, in Tallahassee, it's it's a different etiquette in the grocery store up here. That's for sure. Well, listen, thank you for taking the time out. Is there anything else you'd like to close with?
I thank you all for what you do in the state of Florida. You guys work so hard. Not, obviously you're the firefighters across the state and our first responders, and I look forward to working with you all in the future, and hopefully get elected in November. You'll have a partner up in Tallahassee.
Where can folks go to find out more about your campaign?
Sure, it's right on my website, which is www.nikkifried.com. That's NIKKIFRIED.
All right, fantastic. Well, we thank you so much for joining us today, taking that time.
Yep, I'm on Instagram. I think they keep changing my Instagram account, but I don't control my life anymore. But I think Instagram is Nikki Fried 2018.
All right. Well, thank you for taking time out today to join us on the show, and we wish you the best of luck with your campaign, and be safe in all of your travel.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Well, listen, thank you for tuning into the Doug and Mike Show. Follow us online with our social media, and we will check you out next time. Have an awesome day.